We all dream of wearing the number 10 jersey like Messi, shining under the stadium lights and basking in global fame. But for our hero Jian, this dream was actually a nightmare because he lacked the talent and passion. Yet secretly, he was supposed to be a football miracle, but a childhood trauma crushed his spirit and left him too terrified to even step onto the field. From that moment on, he stopped playing matches properly, and his dream slowly began to fade. And without any dramatic pause, the story moves into his present, where he sits with Fiorentina's under-17 youth team, feeling bored and detached, lost inside his own thoughts as he reflects on something he recently realized, that lies are exactly like snowballs, because every lie starts small and harmless, but once it begins to roll, it keeps picking up more snow, growing heavier and bigger, until the so-called white lies spiral out of control, especially when everyone adds their own touch to them. And he knows deep down that if he had been honest with Dio from the start, none of this would have happened. And with that regret weighing on him, the story slips back to an earlier day when he is on the phone, confidently telling the girl on the other end that he is one of the sharpest players she could ever see, exaggerating himself without hesitation. And when she asks if he is serious and whether everything is really going that well, he answers smoothly, asking why she would even question it, proudly claiming that he scored 3 goals all by himself that day, which leaves her impressed as she praises his skill and says she is happy to learn this about him, while at the same time he quietly admits to himself that the truth is the complete opposite of what he just said. And this is where we learn his name is Gian, as his story unfolds to reveal that he first played football at Juventus, a prestigious club in Italy, before moving to Fiorentina as a way to escape the struggles he faced there, since he couldn't adapt, and although he is only a substitute at Fiorentina, it is still better than what he experienced at Juventus, to the point that he feels lucky no one here bullies him or causes trouble. Yet the real problem isn't competition or pressure from others, but that inside he has lost his passion and doesn't even believe he has the talent to aim for a starting position. And by focusing only on himself and avoiding rivalry, he keeps himself away from conflict, drifting through his days until Dio's voice snaps him back as she asks if he even heard what she was saying, because he hasn't replied for a while, startling him as he quickly tells her to calm down and continue, while thinking that this noisy girl is Dio, his childhood friend of 10 years and almost his only friend all that time, someone who treated him like a younger brother when he lived in Korea, always caring for him, a bit loud and annoying, but someone he grew deeply attached to, which is why they are still talking even after he moved to Italy. And although lying to her makes him uncomfortable, he doesn't want her to feel sorry for him. And while he drinks water and barely listens to her endless chatter, his attention suddenly sharpens when she says she is coming to Italy, shocking him as he asks her to repeat herself to make sure he heard right. And she casually explains that she applied to a cooking school, then to a student exchange program, which is why she is going to Italy, specifically Florence. And since she will already be there, she thought she might as well visit him and watch the football genius Gian proudly winning matches, even telling him her flight is in 2 weeks, and the shock makes the phone slip from his hand as he freezes, repeating in his mind that it's only 2 weeks and wondering what he is supposed to do while Dio calls out asking where he went, but he remains trapped in panic, thinking about how he is just a substitute with no right to take anyone's place and barely any chance to play regular matches, questioning what is happening to his life, until a teammate's voice pulls him back to reality, the team captain telling him to get ready for the upcoming small match and reminding him that his position is a false player, though the coach said he can play anywhere he wants, a role that moves between midfield and striker, strengthening defense while also attacking, acting like a shadow on the field, which is why it is called a shadow striker. And Gian bitterly notes that he hears the same words every time, always being told to play wherever he wants, believing the coach thinks a weak player like him is just a backup for the backups and doesn't even need instructions because he won't really play anyway. And as he ties his shoelaces, he sets a new goal: to escape the substitute group and join the core 20 players, even though that alone is difficult, and even then only 11 actually start the match while the rest sit on the bench wearing their kits and watching, with maybe 4 or 5 getting a chance as substitutes, meaning that if Gian truly wants to show Dio that he is a decent player and later justify being tired or out of form, he must at least become one of the 18 players who regularly participate in matches. And we learn that before this, he never cared about being among the starting 11 because he always felt he wasn't good enough. But things are different now, as Gian admits. The reason for his earlier indifference was that when he first arrived in Italy, he had no clear goal pushing him forward. Yet now he refuses to embarrass himself in front of Dio, looking at his coach and deciding that over the next 2 weeks, he must impress him and break free from the substitute cage he feels trapped in, choosing to use every bit of his skill in the match about to begin, because maybe this time luck will finally stand by his side and let him catch the coach's eye from the very start. And since his role is shadow striker, he knows that to leave a strong impression, he must focus on attacking and scoring goals. And as the whistle blows and the match begins with his team in possession, Gian positions himself near his own goal. But as soon as control is secured, he realizes that because it is a small match, the field is tight, the rhythm fast, the number of players limited, and the space narrow, which means his movement without the ball will decide everything. And as he advances toward the opponent's goal, he signals to his teammate, ready for what comes next. He feints to the other side, and the defender behind him truly falls for it and moves away, letting Gian slip through with the ball effortlessly, but at the same time the remaining defenders who were pressing rush toward him, and Jian searches for a passing option until he spots a midfielder, sending the ball over everyone with perfect weight, so precise that all the defenders can only watch it fly without being able to do anything. And Jian immediately takes advantage of that moment, continuing his run toward the goal as the midfielder struggles to control the ball under pressure. Yet the instant he touches it, he returns it straight to John, who is now sprinting at full speed toward the goal, passing the last defender, leaving that final defender shocked as he turns around and realizes the ball was played through and John is already close to scoring, blaming himself for focusing on the other player and forgetting to set the offside trap. And Jian receives the ball and shoots with all his strength, telling himself that he exploited the weak point in their defense, used his teammate to scatter them, and then broke through exactly as planned, and the ball crashes into the net so powerfully that the goalkeeper can't stop it, making Jian burst with joy as his plan works perfectly. The entire team celebrates, including the coach, and Jian thinks that luck was truly on his side this time because the defenders moved exactly how he wanted. And after scoring, he feels a surge of confidence growing inside him, promising himself he can perform even better next time, the fire in his eyes making everyone stare in disbelief. And soon the second quarter ends, because unlike official matches with two halves, these small matches are split into 4 quarters, and the score stands at 6 for Jian's team, with Jian scoring 2 of those goals himself, clearly making the difference, deciding he will give everything in the 3rd and 4th quarters to protect or even improve the result, glancing at the coach to see if he finally earned his attention after the goals. Yet the coach doesn't even look at him, and we learn the coach's name is Luca, who suddenly approaches Jian and tells him to take off the vest he's wearing, and Jian obeys while wondering if the coach wants him to switch teams to see if he can help the other side win too, tossing the vest aside and running toward the second team, while thinking that earlier he was lucky to have cooperative teammates, but now he wonders if he can perform the same way with the opposing team, when Luca sharply asks where he thinks he's going, and Jian answers that he's heading to the other team, only for Luca to snap back and order him off the field entirely, shocking Jian as he realizes this is the one thing he never expected, being sent off so easily after everything he did, and Luca looks clearly irritated as Jian sits on the bench outside, stunned, telling himself that today is full of surprises and nothing is happening the way he imagined, suddenly finding himself part of the main squad, something he never expected, especially after Luca yelled at him and then kicked him out, his expression making it clear that if Jian had said one word, he might have been hit, which leaves Jian tense, knowing that now he's dealing with the official team and every move is calculated, every mistake dangerous, because he doesn't want to return to the substitute group. And suddenly, someone calls his name, making him jump up and respond quickly, only to hear the caller calmly tell him to relax, revealing himself as Coach Tony, the coach of the main team, who apologizes for calling out suddenly, and Jian replies politely that it's fine, admitting he was lost in thought, and Tony asks if he can play as a shadow striker for the team without a vest, to which John immediately agrees, secretly wondering if he's really being sent in this fast, as Tony tells him to warm up properly first, and Jian answers like a soldier, walking away stiffly enough to surprise Tony, who thinks to himself that this time John might actually be good, and we see Tony earlier organizing his documents when Luca enters his office and tells him that John looked different in training today, showing him the stats collected during practice and admitting he doesn't know what suddenly changed, only that Jian was giving everything on the field, and Tony listens in disbelief as Luca suggests that maybe Jian has finally returned to his old level, and Tony studies the stats, hoping it's true, but warning Luca not to show Jian any reaction, telling him to treat him normally, while Luca assures him he's only observing from afar, and we learn that 3 years ago Jian's talent was extremely high, clubs chasing after him, his name appearing in magazines, leading to his contract with Juventus, which eventually ended because he couldn't adapt, and when Tony learned about this, he contacted him, noticing that every encouraging word boosted Jian's confidence, while a single wrong word could destroy it and push him into depression so deep he refused to play, and although Tony wasn't sure whether to sign him, he decided to bring him in and watch quietly until the day Jian was ready again. Yet that day took so long that 2 full years passed with Jian unchanged, but Tony never doubted him, always believing this day would come, seeing him as a football miracle who doesn't yet know his own worth, patiently waiting for the moment Jian realizes his value and unleashes his true talent. And we learn that the shadow striker currently playing is named Gino, while Jian finishes warming up on the sideline, realizing that since the coach told him he'll play as shadow striker without a vest, he will likely replace Gino, though he knows it's not because his skills suddenly improved, but because someone on the field is struggling with stamina, meaning Gino himself is currently having problems. And after finishing his warm-up, John keeps looking toward Tony, waiting to see when he'll be sent in, but Tony ignores him, leading Jian to calm himself, thinking that just getting subbed in is already what he dreamed of, so there's no need to panic about timing, deciding instead to stop worrying about pointless things and focus on what he'll do on the field, imagining the pitch like a chessboard with players as chess pieces, noticing how the opposing defenders constantly stick to Gino and press him even without the ball, and the moment he receives it, 2 defenders attack at once, which explains explains why the team's attackers can't score as the ball keeps getting stolen near the goal, and Jian imagines himself in Gino's place, realizing that if he plays the same way, he'll face the same pressure and fail just like Gino, pushing him to think of a way to use space instead, forming a new plan to lure defenders toward the wings or midfield to free space. Even if he himself doesn't benefit, the team will, and as he finishes thinking, doubt creeps in about whether he can execute it when even Gino couldn't, until memories flood back of him as a child holding a trophy, a woman standing before him saying he must perform better, that she won't forgive future mistakes, that he must succeed no matter what, while young Jian cries in fear, and Tony watches him even now, wondering if he still has those attacks, remembering rumors that they were caused by his mother's harsh treatment, thinking of how to help him, deciding to trust him, be patient, and give him the chance to prove himself, placing a hand on Jian's shoulder and telling him that his goal is simply to give Gino some rest because his stamina is dropping, assuring him not to feel pressure, to do whatever he wants on the field, that no one will blame him, and Tony tells himself that this should reduce Jian's tension since no expectations are placed on him, and John nods, saying he understands, yet inside he realizes he was brought in only so the star Gino can rest for a while until he recovers. But strangely, that thought feels much better, because now there's no pressure at all. No one expects anything from him at all, and Tony calls Gino to come out so Jian can replace him. And the very moment Jian steps onto the field and his boots touch the grass, a sharp thought cuts through his mind that Dio is coming next week. And this isn't just any normal match anymore, this is a match with the main squad, which means every move he makes has to be calculated so he can seize this chance and become one of the core players. And suddenly his confidence begins to return as he tells himself he has to use this opportunity so he doesn't embarrass himself in front of Dio, while the ball circulates within Jian's team, passing from foot to foot but without real effect because they can't get close to the opponent's goal. And a defender sticks to John relentlessly, never leaving him even when the ball isn't near him, making John realize that the situation is far more difficult than he imagined. And he wonders if the plan he came in with can actually work since nothing guarantees the defender behind him will move exactly the way he predicts. And the defender himself mutters that when Gino was subbed out, he expected a strong replacement to make a difference, not someone without a number who isn't even listed, even saying he feels like he's seen Jian before, maybe as the kid who collects balls after training. And for a brief second, John imagines Dio arriving and seeing him picking up balls after the main team finishes, quickly forcing that image out of his mind as he focuses and commits to his plan, suddenly sprinting back toward his own defense, which confuses the defender marking him and makes him shout in disbelief, asking if Jian has abandoned attack to play defender now, while even Tony is startled because this isn't what he instructed and yells at Jian, asking if he's trying to mess up their defensive line since he's clearly running the wrong way. Yet Jian feels a rush of excitement when he glances back and sees the defender continue chasing him, completely abandoning his position, leaving a massive gap behind. And just like that, Jian creates a huge hole in the defense, one of his teammates immediately noticing the empty space and sprinting into it, while the defender who followed Jian freezes in shock, realizing too late that Jian wasn't stupid at all. And Jian feels a quiet joy as his plan unfolds exactly as he imagined, with Tony watching in amazement and realizing that Jian's movement has created space, forcing the opposing team to shift another defender to cover the gap, which in turn leaves yet another space open behind, allowing Jian's team to exploit it again and again until it inevitably leads to a goal. And Tony watches every move Jian makes, barely believing what he's seeing, because no one would believe that a player who barely played football for 2 full years could suddenly perform at such a high level. And when the ball finally comes to Jian's feet, he instantly thinks through his distribution, sending it to midfield. Then the midfield sends it back to defense, and at that exact moment, Jian explodes forward down the line toward the goal, driving the defender, marking him insane because every time he thinks he has Jian contained, Jian darts into a new space no one can predict, and the plan Jian imagined unfolds perfectly as the ball arrives exactly where he wants it. Yet instead of forcing the shot himself, he waits for his teammate to approach the goal and slips him a perfectly weighted pass, leading to an easy goal. And Tony laughs in disbelief, admitting to himself that he was wrong earlier, because if Jian's talent has truly returned, it won't just change Fiorentina's future, it means Jian could be ready for the world stage. And the scene shifts to the airport, where Dio talks to herself excitedly, wondering if she'll finally see the level Jian has been bragging about and whether he really is the miracle everyone talks about. Then we cut to Jian hearing Dio's voice waking him up, telling him to stop sleeping so much and get up because they have so many things to do, only for John to open his eyes and realize she was in his dream. And later, we see him packing his bag and heading to training, proud of himself now that he's considered part of the main team, walking through the streets while thinking about what he needs to do to become a starting player in next week's official match, until we arrive at Fiorentina's training ground, where Jian stands alone while the rest of the players gather around Luca. And Jian is shocked, not because he wasn't chosen to start, but because his name isn't written on the list at all, which stings. Yet this time he calms himself and thinks rationally, admitting he was greedy to expect his name on the list after just one training session, motivating himself by remembering there's another list announcement before Dio arrives arrives, and if he works even harder this time, he can make the squad for next week's official match, though he's competing with 2 others for the same position, Gino and Andrea. And then we see Gian on the pitch pushing himself to the absolute limit, working so hard that Luca himself is impressed, saying he can't believe Gian can carry the ball that far without losing it while executing the plan exactly as instructed, noting that Gian has reached the same level as Gino and Andrea, and that leaving his name off the list earlier clearly ignited something inside him, making him desperate to prove himself, while Tony feels proud because this was his decision, reminding Luca that their job now is to build Gian's confidence step by step without putting pressure on him, joking that it's like taming a cat, and they both laugh as Tony praises Gian's skills. And when training ends, everyone gathers while Gian stands exhausted after giving everything he has, looking to Tony expecting to hear the squad list, only to be confused when Tony isn't holding anything, wondering how the final training before the match ended without a list when Dio arrives tomorrow. Yet Tony simply thanks everyone and tells them the list will be sent individually later, dismissing them all, and Gian runs home telling himself he's done everything he possibly can, that Dio arrives tomorrow and now his entire fate rests on the coach's decision, silently praying to be chosen. And the next day his phone is flooded with messages from Dio, updating him on everything she's doing, and when he opens his phone she tells him she's arrived at her place, will get ready in an hour and they'll meet after, sending John into a panic as he rushes to his wardrobe only to realize all he owns are sports clothes, trying them on one by one and blaming himself for never buying proper outfits, then calming himself by saying it's not a date anyway, just lunch with a childhood friend, stopping by his father to say he's heading out, only for his father to scold him for wearing training gear and hand him a proper outfit, joking that now he can go meet whoever he wants, leaving Gian awkwardly waiting on the street, thinking about Dio and their memories, telling himself she's probably grown up and won't annoy him like before, when suddenly he hears her voice behind him and freezes, shocked by how beautiful she looks, greeting her without meeting her eyes, which annoys Dio as she complains and tries to grab his face to make him look at her, while John struggles to hold himself together, her perfume overwhelming him until he finally looks and blurts out that her outfit looks strange, prompting her to tease him about being attracted to her, creating the most embarrassing moment of his life. So he quickly suggests they go eat, walking beside her as she hops around like they're kids again, asking why he avoids eye contact, while Gian thinks to himself that Dio hasn't changed at all and wonders if she was always this beautiful, and at a fancy restaurant she's impressed by the food he orders, teasing him about being grown up enough to afford it, while Gian waits nervously for the squad message, and when Dio asks how many goals he plans to score, he panics, unable to answer, as she pushes him to promise at least 1 goal to celebrate her visit, even mimicking Ronaldo's celebration, making Gian shush her in embarrassment, wondering how he can promise anything when he doesn't even know if he'll play, stalling until she gets upset and sulks, accusing him of not liking her or not being as good as he claims, just as his phone rings with a message from Coach Tony, filling him with relief, and after they part ways, Dio teasing him as usual, Gian checks the message and learns he must be present on Sunday at 12, making him rejoice because at least his name is on the list, remembering how he bravely told Dio to name how many goals she wants, then immediately rushing to the nearest pole to throw up from stress, regretting his words, knowing he lied again, yet telling himself that even if he doesn't score, just playing and showing his talent matters, and on match day he wakes at 6 in the morning feeling strange, unsure if it's nerves or fear, worrying that if he gets a chance, this could be the day everything is exposed in front of Dio, unable to calm himself until his father prepares breakfast so bad John pretends he's full, heading out to the locker room where everyone chats while he stares at the floor, overwhelmed by tension, questioning whether he'll play, whether Tony will finally trust him, whether he might faint like before and humiliate himself, until the Fiorentina versus Sassuolo match begins. The ball with Fiorentina's number 8 who looks up and passes to Gino on the wing, Gino spotting a defender rushing him, faking right and heading the ball left to beat him cleanly, igniting Fiorentina's attack as the team surges forward, while Gian watches from the bench, acknowledging how strong his team is, seeing Gino combine effortlessly past defenders, realizing how hard it will be to break into a squad this powerful, especially with Gino being the best among them, watching Gino exploit wide gaps in the defense, shoot with power only to hit the crossbar, teammates encouraging him to keep going, and Gian sits trembling on the bench, whispering to himself in fear as the match continues. 4 full balls have already gone in so far, and Gian wonders if he will even get to play today at all, but he tries to calm himself, telling himself that destiny is something no one can predict, and almost as if the world answers him, we see Gino running with the ball when a defender presses him hard and elbows him, making Luca angry as he shouts at the referee that it was an elbow strike and demands a yellow card, and the referee actually gives it, while Gino's teammates rush to check on him, and Gino assures them he's fine, and Gian watches this in awe, thinking that now there's a real chance he might actually play, and at the same time we see Dio in the stands, surrounded by people celebrating wildly, yet she alone looks confused, asking herself what is happening and whether this is supposed to be fun, because the score is still 0-0, but everyone looks insanely happy, making her wonder if she's supposed to feel the same, and she remembers what Gian told her before, saying that since the opponent opponent is weak, there's a chance he won't even play this match, which would mean his level is on a completely different stage. And that thought bothers her even more as she wishes she could see John play today. But before she can think further, the crowd around her explodes with cheers because Gino scores the first goal for Fiorentina. And instead of celebrating, Dio feels disappointed, muttering that this means Gion's team scored, and that's actually bad, because it proves Gion's words right and confirms the opponent really is weak. And since Fiorentina scored, the chances of Gion playing just dropped even more, while at the same moment Gion feels relieved and happy because what he said came true, and he looks better in Dio's eyes now that a goal came within the first 20 minutes, making this scenario much better than he imagined. And he realizes that the only way he'll play is if the team scores many goals early and secures the win, which would all be thanks to Gino. And almost immediately after, Gino scores the second goal, making Gion clap awkwardly as his teammates tell him to cheer louder because they can't hear him, forcing Gion to apologize. And Tony notices him especially after that, and the first half ends with Fiorentina leading 3-0, taking us into the locker room where everyone is excited, energized, and proud of the scoreline, while John sits alone as usual but this time smiling, telling himself that scoring 3 goals in the first half proves their performance was truly excellent. And just then Tony enters the room asking everyone to focus, and when Gion sees him approaching, he thinks this is the moment to raise his expectations, as Tony praises the whole team and tells them to maintain or increase their lead, while Gion screams silently inside, wondering why Tony doesn't see that now is the perfect time to sub him in, since even if he makes mistakes, they won't cost the match. And more importantly, Gino, their best player, must be tired and needs rest for future matches. Yet all of this stays trapped in Gion's head because he can't even raise his voice. And Tony notices Gion staring at him for a while without saying a word, calling out to ask if he's feeling unwell, making Gion panic and say he's fine, but suddenly forgot what he wanted to say, asking to use the bathroom, leaving Tony confused but allowing him to go. And in the bathroom, Gion turns on the tap so no one thinks he's strange, staring at himself in the mirror, questioning what he's doing and trying to encourage himself, then returning to the team with a clear goal in mind. No matter what just happened, all he wants now is to play. And the second half begins with Gion still on the bench until the 60-minute arrives, when Tony checks his watch and calls Andrea, Fabian, and Gion, shocking John when he hears his own name, and Tony tells them all to warm up, making John feel like his chance has finally arrived and he must not waste it. So he positions himself right next to Tony and starts warming up seriously to show he's ready, annoying Tony so much that he tells him to warm up with the others instead of hovering, making John rush over apologetically. And we learn that John is doing everything he can to be noticed, yet he feels out of place among the others, especially since Andrea standing next to him is considered Gino's successor and is expected to become a starter soon because of his refined ball control and unique style. And when Gion glances over and sees Luca talking to Andrea, he immediately realizes Andrea is likely the next substitution, making Gion feel like the team still sees him as unimportant, almost guilty for being paid all these months without contributing, even wondering why they don't at least let him play one match to justify his salary, imagining that if Tony lets him play, he will amaze them and show his true level. And after 15 minutes, he sees Luca walking toward the substitution indicator to announce the next change, making Gion's heart race as he wonders who will be chosen, assuming it will be Andrea as expected, or Fabian to strengthen defense and protect the lead. While Dio overhears fans saying Fiorentina will make a substitution since they're leading by 3 goals and will surely take Gino out now that the win is secure, and when the substitution board goes up, someone asks if it's Andrea, only to be corrected that it's number 20, shocking everyone as they say they've never even heard of him. But the moment Dio hears that number, her face lights up as she tells herself that the football miracle is finally coming on and she'll get to watch him play, while John himself is stunned, barely believing it's real as a wave of fear and anxiety crashes over him, darkening his vision as one of his panic episodes hits, until Luca notices and rushes over asking if he's listening, snapping Gion back to reality, answering yes with forced excitement. And Luca tries to ease the pressure by telling him to play however he wants and remember there's no pressure on him, which surprisingly calms Gion this time, because unlike before when he would tremble, now he feels a strong excitement pushing him toward the field, driven by the desire to score and fulfill the promise he made to Dio. And the match resumes with Fiorentina in possession, while Dio grows frustrated that no one is passing the ball to John, shouting loudly for them to give it to him, shocking the boys around her since John isn't famous at all. And at the same time, Dio feels her heart pounding uncontrollably from the moment John's foot touched the pitch, making her question why she's this nervous when she's not even the one playing. And finally, the ball reaches Fiorentina's midfield and is passed to Gian, who controls it cleanly. So friends, if you enjoy this manhwa and want next chapter, so don't forget to like the video and subscribe the channel now.